Thank you for joining us. My name is Lou Bell Brown. I have the honor and privilege of serving as superintendent of schools here, and I am joined by good friends and colleagues of Lily Talcott and Carrie Burke. Lily's our deputy superintendent, and Carrie is our coordinator of health and wellness. And this is, I see so many folks who are coming back. This is the second round of these conversations as we're sharing out what we're thinking and how we're planning for reopening our schools and our school buildings. We're excited. The last time we spoke was back in June. And at that time, we didn't have much information, but we were planning for many, many different scenarios. Now we do have some additional information, which we're going to go through and talk to you about what we're thinking of doing. Thank you again. Thank you for joining us this evening. But more importantly, thank you for your support and your efforts. And I've never been more proud to live in this community than I am right now. Back in March, the toughest decision I've ever had to make when we had to close our school buildings. That was a tough decision. And then coming to our community and talking about what it would take to reopen, we said then that our behaviors would dictate if we would even have an opportunity to reopen our buildings. In addition to that, we knew that at the time, what would dictate opening our buildings would be this deadly virus and our governor, neither of which we knew which direction it would go. Today, we know that we're in a situation here in Ithaca, in our region, where our governor has given us the go-ahead to engage in conversations and planning to open our buildings in person, virtually, or a combination. Tonight, we are closer to making that final decision. Our plans are due to New York State Department of Education on July 31st. We received the 145 pages of guidance last Thursday evening. And we've been working very, very hard to put together, hoping that we would have that document done. That document is up to 200 pages now. It's a very detailed document. We are going to be completing a document, but tonight we wish to share with you some high-level thinking and where we plan to go. So what are we thinking? We are preparing, and this is, our approach to this is rather unique. We are preparing and planning for an approach to this that honors who we are. We're a school district that has engage, educate, and empower as our mission statement. And over the years, as we've talked about that word empower, we've landed on, that means voice and choice. What does voice and choice mean for us? You know, voice and choice means everyone is empowered to make decisions. Everyone is empowered to have a personalized experience. True choice looks like us in this moment, this unprecedented moment in our history, in the history of our school district. When we say we're going to open back up, we wish to offer both our families and teachers, our staff, some choice. We are saying that our families can choose based on your medical needs, based on whether there's a vulnerable household member or preference. You can choose to have a completely in-person experience 5 days a week, and we'll talk about what that will look like, or a virtual experience 5 days a week, and we will talk about what that looks like as well. The same for our teachers. We've been working very, very closely with many, many stakeholders over the past few months. There's a large task force that we've been in close conversations with, and they've given us some amazing thinking. So yeah, we have this plan. We plan to offer choice. The in-person experience, again, would be Monday through Friday. Yes, physical distancing will be utilized according to the guidelines. We will need your help with transportation. We're still working through what that will look like. There is some conflicting guidance out there. Transportation, we operate one of the largest transportation programs or operations in our region. It's always difficult. It will be even more difficult now as we hope to provide transportation to every young person and every family that chooses to be in person in our buildings. So we have work to do there. That may be a place we're going to be asking our community to support us. I've been the person, well, our team has been a team that has said, you know, it's always good to get on a bus and ride to school. I'm going to be shifting my thinking now. It may be good for some families to help us out by dropping your young people off or young people driving to school themselves. And then the distance learning. Last spring, the approach to virtual learning, distance learning, not only here in Ithaca, but across the nation, was a response to an emergency closing of our school buildings. We all learned much from that. We all, as educators, you know, after spending 2 centuries in one model, we are now transitioning to several other instructional delivery models. So we will be even better going forward with our distance learning approaches, and we're going to be talking more about that. That choice See, that choice, as you may be reading about the different options being offered all over the nation, some folks are offering up a hybrid model or a blended learning model. As we've reflected on our true values and that notion of choice, from my perspective, it's not much choice when you say to a family, you can come to school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or you can come in the morning or the afternoon. We really struggle with that if we truly wish to be student and family centered and also say we are offering choice. So for us, the true choice is the in-person or completely virtual. Now, we also know that based on what may happen in our region and in our community, we may need to be very, very flexible and transition quickly. And we're having this conversation right now at 6:08 on July the 23rd. And I've learned over the last 4 or 5 months that things can change every 15 minutes. So as of right now, we're offering this opportunity, the in-person 5 days a week. But if things change, that may transition quickly to being at home for a day, at home for a week, or back to an extended closure, which we've all been experiencing. So why, other reasons why we've done this, we are following those New York State Education Department guidelines and the New York State Department of Health guidelines. And quickly, I'm going to turn to Ms. Berg because there is a formula. Folks have asked, what is the formula that you're using, the state's using to determine whether or not you can be in person or not? And there is a formula that our governor has put before us. Ms. Berg, would you like to explain, please?
Happy to. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here this evening with all of you. So, per Governor Cuomo, schools open if a region is in phase 4 and the daily infection rate is 5% or lower using a 14-day average. He will be making a decision about school opening during the first week of August. And schools close if regional infection rate is greater than 9% using a 7-day average after August 1st.
Thank you, thank you. Other reasons why? We know our in-person, people are asking often, why do you wish to go back in person? Why is it so important? It is important to have our young people in our spaces. Yes, we wish to offer choice. I see our industry, I see our school district moving to a situation where we will offer a virtual experience or an in-person experience probably for the foreseeable future. But it is important to work towards having young people in our spaces. We know we spent, again, 2 centuries developing this instructional delivery model. While it's not perfect, it's pretty good. We have work to do to have our blended approach and our virtual approach to be as good, but we're going to get there very soon. But it's important to have this in-person experience. We know many young people need that experience. They want that in-person relationship building opportunity. It is part of their social emotional healthy, and it can be happening in a blended environment as well. Why are we doing this? We have over 1 million square feet, thanks to the amazing support of this community over the years. Your investments have put us in a position where we have the space, and we've been walking spaces for the last couple of weeks, every nook and cranny. We can do this. It will look different, but we can have our young people in the spaces we have in this school district and be physically distanced. Now, I will say, and people have heard me say this publicly, our approach to culture, our approach to a loving approach to teaching and learning, our physical distancing will not have our schools look like correction centers. If you read the CDC guidelines, and if not careful, we're creating a situation that won't be the best situation for a loving environment, and we won't do that. But we have the space. We've also heard from you via surveys, I showed my team today, via the 200,000 emails I've received over the last 6 months. We've heard from folks. Childcare is going to be a challenge. And we recognize that while we are not a childcare provider, we do know that our schools are used to support the childcare needs. So, and with the hybrid approaches, here one day, not here the next day, half-day approaches, we knew that would be a challenge. Quite frankly, from my perspective, it wouldn't help us instructionally. So that was one of the reasons why we did not go in that direction. And again, we're going to talk about all the folks that we've been talking to, the stakeholders, educators we've learned much from, experts, scientists, community leaders. So we've talked to many, many folks. We've received a lot of feedback, which has informed our approaches to reopening our school buildings as of today. Let's talk. You want to talk about culture and the 4 pillars from our plan?
Wonderful, thank you. For those who've just joined, my name is Lily Talcott, and I have the pleasure of serving as your Deputy Superintendent for the Ithaca City School District. Let me talk a little bit about this idea of how. How do we plan to reopen our physical spaces and reopen our digital learning spaces? Well, we've engaged in intentional, very collaborative planning around 4 interdependent and very overlapping, and in some ways at times separate pillars. So we've been focused on reopening planning for the last few months, frankly, right after we closed, around the ideas of culture, of physical and environmental health and safety, of social, emotional, and academic learning, and communication. This first pillar of culture really requires our whole school community, our students, our staff, the very few visitors who will be joining us, families, and more, really everyone who's connected to the Ithaca City School District to engage in thinking collectively and acting individually. We continue to really work toward realizing these 7 tenets of a culture of love as well. So you'll see these over here on the left. And as we implement new cultural norms around health and safety. So for example, face coverings, you see some of our students over here on the right, donning face coverings themselves, right? And we do that because we're showing that we care, right? Not only about ourselves, but also about each other. I'll also add that in those face coverings, we believe that there are great opportunities for our students and our staff to authentically show who they are, right? Through expression, right? On things like face masks as well, right? Physical distancing. We are in a position now following the guidance where we will need to remain 6 feet apart from one another if unable to wear a mask at that time, right? And so that will require that we are all committed, that we stay committed to that practice. Screening is going to occur every day, all of us, myself included, right? I'm in my office today. When I woke up first thing, I took my temperature and I filled out my daily screener, right? I needed to be honest and actually do that every day. And we as staff are going to be required to do that. And we're going to ask families, as per the guidance, to ensure that they're taking the temperature of their children before they're coming to school. Hand washing, that's certainly going to require a great deal of patience and selflessness, right? 20 seconds of hand washing or singing happy birthday twice does take time, and it certainly requires us to remain patient with ourselves and with our community as well. And then all along, as folks, staff, and children alike, we all may forget these new social norms as we're creating this new environment with one another. And we absolutely must engage in restorative practices and remember to be trusting and forgiving of one another. As Dr. Brown said, we will not create environments that are like prisons or institutions, right? We are going to create environments that are affirming and that are actively anti-racist, right? Each decision we make in relationship to health and safety matters. And with that, let's talk about health and safety. A healthy, safe, and supportive environment is most conducive to effective teaching and learning. Our policies, procedures, and practices are designed to support the health and safety of our school community. Reopening schools requires a combination of new and enhanced measures at the individual building and district level. The guidance from federal and state agencies includes a number of prevention and mitigation strategies, which in combination can reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission. Much of the information you've heard today likely focuses on individual behaviors, and we are planning to support those in every way we're able, in the ways that Ms. Talcott just mentioned around culture, and also ensuring that we have adequate supplies of masks, tissues, access to soap and water, hand sanitizer. It's important to know we're giving equal or even greater weight to our practices and systems, to changing the way that students and staff do school, to rethinking who has access to our buildings. So we're going to be encouraging people to stay home when they're sick. There's no more toughing it out. We're going to be limiting non-essential visitors and volunteers or activities involving external groups. We are going to be working on cohorting, which is a term you've probably heard, where we are working to keep student and staff groupings as static as possible so that the same group of children are staying with the same staff. Limiting gatherings, events, and extracurricular activities to those that can support physical distancing and hygiene, and implementing the daily health screening for students, staff, and visitors. It's also about our school environments and the systems within them. It's our strategies around how we structure our physical spaces, our classrooms to support physical distancing. It's our cleaning and disinfecting protocols, using the guidance that we received prior to closure, which we have since implemented, with special attention to those high-touch surfaces and high-risk locations like the health office or lunchrooms or other common shared objects. And ensuring our ventilation systems operate properly and increase the circulation of outdoor air. It's important to note that regardless of what procedures are put in place, it will not be possible to reduce the risk of COVID transmission in our schools to zero. This has been a collective effort. We have relied on the guidance and the science afforded to us by our state agencies, including the Department of Health, the Education Department, and the Department of Transportation. But we have not limited ourselves to the written guidance provided by state and federal agencies. We have sought out information and are consulting subject matter experts inside and outside the district, including Frank Krupa, our Public Health Director, Dr. Melissa Dendali, who serves as our Medical Director and is on the Board of Health for the county. We are consulting guidance from the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. We are at this moment in the midst of an on-site consultation with Trane, which is a manufacturer of HVAC systems. We have also worked with Tetra Tech, who are spearheading our capital project to support physical distancing efforts and other things related to our physical environment. And looking at guidance from nonprofits like the New York State Public Health School Athletic Association, which is the governing body of interscholastic sports. And finally, to note that we have worked closely with our supervisors and frontline staff who have deep knowledge of regulations, best practices, and operations, including facilities, child nutrition, transportation, school health, extracurricular activities like performing arts and athletics. We have been engaged with many experts along the way, including people here in our community. Our next pillar is social, emotional, and academic learning, and this is truly the cornerstone of what we do here in the Ithaca City School District. Why do we start with social, emotional learning? We do so very intentionally. We know that our students and our staff, frankly, are going to be returning to our digital and physical spaces with a wide variety of experiences. That's always the case, and I think it's even more so the case, right? Knowing that folks have been experiencing this pandemic and protests calling for racial justice throughout our world, and we're going to need to focus in on taking care of each other and taking care of ourselves in order to get to deep, rigorous academic learning. And so there are a number of foundational elements that certainly will continue, things like social emotional learning and focusing on the principles of ruler through the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. Innovation very closely tied to case studies or project-based learning units, which take, again, very rigorous academic standards and then support student learning through authentic, engaging learning experiences. Culturally responsive practices that work to validate and affirm our students and also help them build and bridge to the school-based environment. Inclusion and the ways in which we're designing learning, both our learning spaces, again, both digitally and in person. and the learning opportunities, the content, the modes of expression, et cetera, to really work within a wide range, work for a wide range of learners. Our commitment to anti-racist teaching continues through the work that we've done around anti-marginalization curriculum design as well, and more. And we have two new elements to our instructional approach around enhanced partnerships. In what ways are we working really genuinely and authentically and lovingly with our caregivers who may be the facilitators of learning in their homes for children, right? And blended learning. We know that for those who may start with us in person, at some point it is very likely that our school buildings will be forced to close again, and students will be back in digital or remote spaces. And so obviously that's another very important element of our instructional program as well. What will distance learning look like as we move forward in the fall? Well, our task force, as Dr. Brown has alluded to, we have worked very closely with our phenomenal union representation, and we have an excellent group, a large group of educators who have worked tirelessly for not just when our physical buildings were closed, but also over the last few weeks, to design and really rethink how we may engage in distance learning in the fall. You'll see some common elements among these 4 areas, right? So things like synchronous or real-time learning is going to be present every day for young people, and asynchronous, or those anytime learning experiences, will also be available for young people. Additionally, small group instruction, we heard loud and clear from both our educators and from our caregivers, and so our task force really worked hard to come together around this idea of ensuring small group instruction is supported through this model. So teachers may be working with small groups periodically throughout the day to really differentiate and support that academic learning for young people. And then you'll see some variations in terms of time, really looking at developmental appropriateness and course content. You'll see some shifts then as well at for the middle school level, for example, this idea of students working together in essentially a pod or a cohort that will allow them to engage in ongoing meaningful instruction with a wide range of staff, right, through their course selection, but also maintaining coherence and contact with at least one single point regularly as well. Many more details about distance learning will be forthcoming. And again, I have to give credit where credit is due. Our task force and our union leadership have done a phenomenal job of really working to take student needs into account and also match those to educators' needs as we look ahead to distance learning. The guidance in New York State also ensures that we have really clear outlines around a few additional elements. So the regular and substantive interaction, which I mentioned earlier, that daily contact that will continue. Special education services and supports and Section 504 accommodations, again, will continue, whether folks decide to have their children be learning at home or within our physical spaces, right? And for those who select the in-home option, we will again work very closely with families through the Master Educators of Inclusion and caseworkers to find ways in which to meet the individualized education plan for our young people. Specific plans for supporting our youngest learners, both through distance learning and in-person learning, and there's some special considerations made there. The arts is also something we're considering very closely and thinking about ways in which to support student learning, knowing that there clearly have been varied experiences since our closure in the fall, and that frankly remains true for all subject areas. We're also ensuring that even our youngest learners have access to technology. So we're in the midst of procuring iPads for pre-K through first grade students, and our board has been incredibly supportive in terms of getting those leases started through our BOCES. Additionally, there's supports to around English as a new language and helping our ENL or English as a new language students. Physical education, similar to the arts, is going to require that we have 12 feet of social or physical distancing among our learners. And so we're looking at options and opportunities within that. And lastly, the state asks us to ensure that we have a very clear professional development plan. And so this summer, we have put together a series of options that are very focused around anti-racist teaching practices and culturally responsive practices, integrated social emotional support, and blended learning. We recognize how essential communication is to our planning for reopening. Communication is our fourth pillar, but it is a key component of the areas we have just discussed. Our communication efforts reflect a spectrum of engagement, from information sharing to information gathering, consultation, and participation. We have poured over the information our students, staff, and caregivers shared in the surveys conducted in June. We held information sessions in late June to share with you our approach to reopening planning in advance of receiving any guidance. Our leadership has been invited to contribute to the conversation on reopening in local and national media outlets. We've convened our teachers, supervisors, and frontline staff through the task force and work groups to leverage the knowledge we've gained from our recent experiences, paired with your feedback and insights, and the available guidance to craft proposals which attend to health, safety, instruction, and all the other things we do as a school community. We review every question, comment, and proposal you have submitted through our Let's Talk application and work to respond to them in a timely manner. We are conducting focus groups to further our understanding and to give context to the information, questions, and content you've shared. And we invite you to visit the Reopen ICSD webpage, where you can find information on future sessions, links to current guidance, and a link to our FAQs page, which is actually updated just before this session this evening, which we will continue to update based on your inquiries. Looking ahead, we are anticipating your engagement as active partners, collaborating to create learning environments which are safe, student affirming, actively anti-racist, and contribute to our shared commitment to a culture of love. With that, we are happy to take your questions. If you could please type them into the chat, we will try to get to as many as possible. Again, please visit our website for announcements and information.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Lily. And I've been over here frantically trying to curate these questions. We've been thinking about this stuff all day for months. And when we had thought of everything, we have hundreds of questions coming in from our amazing community about this. So folks, we have about 15 minutes left. If it's okay with y'all, we're gonna do a bit of a lightning round. So we're gonna try to answer in sound bites. I will refer everyone to our website, to the frequently asked questions section, because many of these questions are answered there. So let's just get started. There's so many, I'm gonna do my best to try to talk according to themes. And this is a good one for you. Folks are still struggling with this. Will teachers be in person, virtually, or a combination of both? When we're asking educated teachers, when we're asking them to choose how they wish to deliver their instructional, what does that mean? Can you clarify for folks? Because that's a common theme here.
Excellent, yes. As I said, we've worked very closely with Adam Piasecki, who is the Ithaca Teachers Association Union President, and collaborated wonderfully well. We have a great relationship. We have, obviously, there are many details to work out, but we are certainly on the same page here in terms of really trying to find ways to have teachers either teach in person and select to be an in-person educator, right, or be a virtual teacher, right? So the processes and all of the details associated with that, of course, we are working through, and we have even, of course, another meeting tomorrow as well And some more information for staff will be coming regarding that.
Thank you. Thank you. This next one, I love my community. If we make a decision, we make a choice, are we bound to that choice? And how long? So, and I'll answer this one. Folks, this is where we need your help. We would like for folks to make a selection, whether you're going to have your instruction delivered virtually or in person. And we hope to have you make that choice thinking that it's going to be for an entire semester, minimally. And we also know we live in Ithaca, and folks, we'll go at this on a case-by-case basis. Yes, we do wish for you to commit to that choice, but we also know that we need to have some flexibility there. So yes, you can relax. We're going to ask you to make a choice so we can plan transportation, our staffing, but please, as you always do, email us or call us if you have a need to change, and we will do our best to accommodate you. Another one that a lot of folks asking, face mask, face PPE. So are we asking students to carry? Are we asking them to wear face masks all day, every day? And what does the guidance speak to?
I think the guidance acknowledges the efficacy of face masks, but also the realities that we all experience, that it can be very difficult, particularly for our youngest learners. So there's an expectation that when we are not able to physically distance, that individuals will be wearing face masks. This again goes back to the environmental piece, where we're working very hard to configure our learning spaces to support that physical distancing, recognize that people will need opportunities not to have a mask on. There's been a lot of conversation about building in mask breaks to the school day as well.
Thank you. What about tents and outdoor spaces? This is probably the question I've received the most. How are we going to utilize those outside spaces in Central New York in January? So Lily, I'll refer to you because we've talked a lot about this one. Go.
Great. So the guidance actually does speak quite a bit to tents and the use of these. There are extremely strict guidelines associated with these, and we are, of course, reviewing all of those. They also have to be entirely approved through the New York State Education Department. And so they need to meet everything from fire code to they need their own ventilation systems, et cetera. So it's quite the undertaking as per New York State. So as we explore that further, we also are very clear that there are many schools within our school district that have engaged in and really prioritized outdoor learning. So places like Caroline Elementary School and Bell Sherman Elementary School, they have wilderness campuses, right? They have these trails, these outdoor learning spaces. There are amphitheaters at a number of our spaces. There are large green spaces and wooded areas that students and that teachers are engaging students in learning within. And obviously, we're going to continue to utilize those spaces as much as possible in order to support learning.
Thank you. I know we educators, we use a lot of acronyms and fancy word jargon. Synchronous versus asynchronous. Can we clarify for folks because that's going to be a big word used often. Lily, can we clarify a bit more, folks?
Sure. Synchronous learning is essentially something close to what we're doing now, right? It's in real time, and we're engaging together on this digital platform. So if we were learning something together, right, we would have opportunities to chime in, maybe even go into breakout rooms, and assignments may be given in this manner, and the students can interact with one another in this way as well. So synchronous essentially means real time, like in real time instruction and teaching and learning, right? And then asynchronous is that learning that can be done anytime. That may include reading and then creating a multimedia piece in order to demonstrate what you've read and understand from the reading that you just engaged with. It might be collaborating with another student on a project, or creating a video with another student together, right? And it can be done anytime. So it might be done now it's at 6 o'clock, right? But those synchronous times are held during the school day typically.
Lily, you're gonna have to help me with this one because I can feel the anxiety coming off the screen because I have the same ones. It's kept me up at night, this particular topic. What's gonna happen if too many teachers or too many students choose one option or the other? And before I turn it over to you, Ms. Talkett, I want folks to hang with me now. Our survey data revealed, whether we were talking to educators or families, that you wanted us to think different. You wanted us to use this opportunity to be innovative and do something different with our schools. This is what it looks and feels like. I'm not concerned. And I spent a lot of time up at night thinking about this, but now I've gotten to a place where I'm looking forward to the challenge before us. There is no special formula. We have an opportunity to rethink what we do in a virtual environment and what we do in an in-person environment. And the ratios will work out. We trust us to figure out how to engineer those experiences so that they work for young people. I feel confident that we can do that. While we've never done it before, I know with the smart people we've been talking with all summer that we can figure this piece out. So again, there is no formula and there is no special threshold we're looking for. If we have many teachers who are staying at home, then we would have to figure out a way to pipe that expertise into a space where the young people are. Yeah, they would have adult supervision. It may look different, but it could be, it will be good if we get to that kind of extreme situation. So all those scenarios are things that, quite frankly, you have us in these positions and we have your support behind, around us and behind us to do that. Ms. Talkett, would you add anything? Because that's a big theme in our questions here. What will happen if too many choose one option or the other?
Absolutely, it is. I think you nailed it. But obviously, we are working in close collaboration with our educators, with our administrators, and then obviously we'll engage very closely with our families. I think we have a really strong and clear commitment to moving in this direction, right? And we share that within this team, and I think we will be able to come together and figure this out.
Oh, I love it. So many friends and supportive community members because they're having the same anxieties that I am. What about bus drivers, having additional bus drivers and additional substitutes? Yes, that was an issue before the pandemic and will be an issue afterwards. And we have close to 600 people on this line. I'm asking you, please help us recruit people to drive our buses. They are the first ones to see young people in the morning. We need more bus drivers. Substitute teachers, educators. Now more than ever is an amazing time to be in this wonderful profession. So if you're worried about it, please know we're worried about those things too. Help us recruit folks. If every person on this call recruited one, it would solve our issue. So I'll stop on that one. Another one, we talked about outdoor spaces that keeps coming up. We talked about tents, synchronous versus asynchronous. What about our vocal music, choir, orchestra, band classes? Ms. Talkett, talk to us about what that would look like according to the guidelines.
Sure, and Carrie, jump in anytime on this as well. Our fine and performing arts director, Daphne Shalulu, and the educators who are within the fine and performing arts department have been engaged in these conversations for several weeks, if not months. And so they've been really staying up to date on the emerging research and understandings around best practices here. So obviously within the guidance, anyone who's singing and anyone who is playing a wind instrument must maintain 12 feet of physical distancing. There are a number of strategies that folks are exploring in order to figure out solutions here, including holding classes outside, exploring sectionals, et cetera. And Carrie, if you want to talk a little bit more about some of the research and strategies as well, I'd be happy to turn it over to you. Believe it or not, there's a sort of PPE for instruments as well. So we're looking into having bell covers available for our brass instruments, as well as masks with a slit or space in it to allow students to use those instruments. I have to honestly give credit where credit's due to our fine and performing arts group. As Lily has said, they have been involved in conversations for quite some time, thinking through even the details of, say, a ceramics class and how we handle, we issue ceramic mold or clay to students on an individual basis, and then what happens to that? How do we handle or attend to that? With the performing arts, as has been alluded to, we are looking at outdoor spaces as an option, a blend potentially of virtual and in person, and certainly thinking about some of the largest spaces in the district and how we might be able to use them creatively.
All right. Sports, did we hit sports? That keeps coming up. Can we elaborate a bit more on sports, Ms. Burke?
Yes, happy to. So guidance from NISFA has indicated that, that's the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, has indicated that the fall season is delayed until September 21st, and the championships are canceled. So there's more information that we expect to emerge with respect to sports, but we're going to have to, they're sort of taking a wait and see approach.
Got you. All right, we're running out of time here, but do wish to know if a child gets sick or a teacher gets sick, can we clarify what the protocol will look like? And at the same time, can you talk about what it will look like at the high schools as we're changing classes? So can we do that in about 30 seconds? Carrie, go, then Lily, go.
Well, the answer to honestly, the God's honest truth is it depends. And so we're working with the local public health department on protocols and triggers around closure. So for instance, if we find ourselves, say, in an elementary setting where we are adhering to rigorous cohorting, if there's a confirmed case within a classroom, it might be that we are asking an individual class to quarantine. Actually, I should clarify, the health department may be asking an individual class to quarantine rather than the entire school. We've always committed to being thorough and transparent in terms of communication, while also maintaining the confidentiality of any individual who is pursuing testing or care. So we will be thoughtful about the ways in which we engage you and communicate with you about any potential exposures.
Thank you. With that, wow, we're right at our time. There are hundreds of questions here. Please go to our website. We will use many of these questions to update our website continuously. I will close with, we need your support now more than ever. We're in an unprecedented time. We are working hard. Times like this is when you find out who you are. I think we're finding out who we are as a school district. We are a school district that embraces thinking. We embrace voice and choice. And we feel strongly that the plan we're putting in front of you supports that. And we're also a very loving place. And now more than ever, we hope that you will be patient with us. We're patient with this, with our governor, this virus, and all the things that are coming at us that are changing daily. But again, thank you for showing up tonight. We have additional sessions. Please feel free to log on to those sessions as well, as I'm sure we will have different questions to answer. And please tell a friend. Thank you all. Have a good evening.